And we are back with another episode of Diffusion podcast. Today we have Hansen, founder of Ipe City, a network society in Latin America, paving the way for the rise of pop-up villages in the region. Jean, welcome, and please introduce yourself.
Hey, Ricardo, thanks for having me. I'm Jean. I'm founder and initiator of the Ipe City community. We are a Brazilian community building projects on the network society ecosystem. Like we are developing some content. We just premiered the network society documentary. We build some tools, coordination tools as well. So everything related to network states, startup societies, coordination, and governance, innovation.
Yeah, the network society subject is one of my favorites in the network state industry because when we think about the state, it's something pretty big and it's quite complex for most people to understand. So I always find that it's easier for us to bring to the network society level that in my own perspective, I see as a natural evolution of communities, online communities. But it will be very interesting hearing your perspective on that as well.
Yeah, I agree. And this, I think, these definitions, it's important to have a broad sense of the word. So when you talk about network societies, you are including all projects, all types of communities, for example, all types of models of governance. And the state is very strong word that people relate to centralization, for example, or violence or so on. So I think when you talk about network societies, you are talking in a new type of institution.
It's interesting, this whole debate about semantic and words, because most people,
Yeah.
they usually associate countries, state, nations, and those are words that are quite different. So of course, when we talk about network state, it might happen that some people understand in a certain way when it's actually quite the opposite way. So thinking about, for example, now we have multiple blockchains. We started with Bitcoin, and then we had Ethereum, and then we have more than, I don't know, like there's a plethora of networks. And I think the future will be, like just very diversified. I don't believe in one single blockchain as to rule the others. But if you'd like to expand on the concept of network state connecting with blockchains today, I think that'll be very interesting to hear from you.
Yeah, that's a great question because network states, network societies, they exist because this last cycle of innovation that are peer-to-peer and decentralized technologies. And why is that? Because blockchains, I think, are two main reasons. First is because blockchains have new properties. So if you think about institution, what is the institution? It's an organization. It's a social innovation, a social construct that guarantee that rules will be executed in the future for different people. So you don't want to you want to write rules, for example, in a paper, in a contracts, and you want to make sure that the people in charge of the institutions of the future will execute, will behave the way that you expect, right? So, but we know that this is kind of fallible. There is a lot of corruption. There is a lot of political decisions that are not in the consensus of people and so on. So when we introduce the internet and blockchains and so on, we discover a new way to create new types of institutions. So new rules that instead of the rules be guaranteed by political power, political structures, they are guaranteed by networks, by protocols, technical protocols. So for example, the rules of sending an email, SMTP, the protocol, they don't change. Google create a very big company on top of this protocol, and they are pretty sure the protocol will not change in the future because the decentralized nature of the internet and the protocol. So this is very different from building a project, a startup on top of Twitter, on top of Facebook, because it's not decentralized. So this very nature of decentralization and volunteers keeping this network is what allow we create new types of governance. The second reason is because the internet and this digital infrastructure represents a new frontier. So now, for the first time in recent times, we can create and experiment in small scale in new types of governance. So in Web3, we have DAOs, for example, that are small communities that think in how to govern a bank account on chain, for example, and they create tokens and they decentralize decision making and so on. So this is just experimentations. So with the internet and blockchains, we now have this new frontier when we can create a clean slate, experiment, and if it fails, okay, but if it works, we can scale up this solution for other structures.
It's crazy to think about how much we have changed throughout the last decade. And when you think about the rise of the social medias, of course, every person will have a different perspective on this. But when I look at Meta, especially, and X today, from my own perspective, they are already playing the role of a network state in a sense. They haven't reached a point where they're acquiring land, but the network state network effect that they have in their own social medias is quite strong to the point that well, Meta already have marketplaces. So I guess the next step will be the inclusion of like financial and payments. That would be a whole different thing. If you're able to imagine like have Meta and X integrated with marketplaces such as Amazon, like having their own marketplace, this will change everything. I know X already like is working on having their own television, having their own satellite. So they're building the whole, let's say, the digital infrastructure for them to be independent. So I wonder if this change is coming from the established digital native institutions first, or that will come from the decentralized ecosystem, or anyway, like they will both communicate with each other, helping each other to progress. How do you see that?
Yeah, I think these big tech companies, they have a massive overreach in infrastructure, but they lack legitimacy. So this network society movement and those that are going to win, they are playing the long term in legitimacy. They need to be recognized by other sovereignties, other countries as a serious political organization, institution. So I think they are playing this big tech, Twitter and Facebook, they are massive piece of infrastructure for network states, but they lack the social innovation, they lack the capacity for collective action, for example, that are working towards a goal. So I think this is a big piece. More closely to a network state, I think are blockchains. So Solana is big on special economic zones, for example. And why is that? There's a reason for that, because there's a deep political align in the community already. It's not just technology. The people in Solana, Ethereum, Bitcoin, they are aligned in values of freedom, in progress, in innovation, in self-sovereignty, for example, and so on. So I think this is a step closer to becoming. It's not yet a network state, but it's closer than Facebook and X and Amazon and so on, because they have this moral, this political shared beliefs among the community members. So and they have a better technology as well. So blockchains represent property rights, technology, contracts, financial systems. They have educational partners and institutions that help to educate people and so on. So I think this open source and decentralized projects are closer to become a network state if they want to than the previous Web2 big tech companies.
Now, the interesting part about it is that most of the communities from these protocols and blockchain networks, they're all using X, for example. You will find Solana community on X, you'll find the Ethereum community on
Yeah.
X, Bitcoin as well. So sometimes I feel like we might get to a point that we have like a huge centralized ecosystem, but at the same time, they'll become so centralized and also dangerous that people like, okay, wait a second, we have to create safe havens and the concept of citadels, and that says they will pivot into the blockchains because, as you mentioned, it's just a better system because most of them, apart from Bitcoin, you will be able to program. I think I'm pretty sure we have reached a point in the world that the social contract is pretty much broken. That's not only Latin America, but I would say in the world, and we need not a single like social contract. We need like people to to be ideologically aligned towards a common goal, and they will be able to establish what is the social contract between them, and more than that, ensure that this social contract is respected not by like a random interpretation by a court, but by the actual technology, which is blockchain. So I think Ethereum showcase is perfect. So if you want to touch point on that specific aspect or creating a set of rules between people, I think about like the concept of consensus is quite important in this kind of environment.
Yeah, definitely. I think rules codify moral values in some part, at some extent. So it's very difficult to create rules in communities that are too different in values, in moral values. So it's very important to have a path to create new communities, to create new governance systems, to codify the values of each community. So all this polarization and conflicts exist because there's no clear and pacific path to exit and to fork communities and governance system. So I think this is a big shift that we need to have in society, in countries, to understand that we don't need to force multiple different tribes. For example, in the United States, it's very, very clear now that we have basically two nations. It's blue and red. Very different assumptions, very different um, values. So it's insane to try to create rules that satisfies everyone. It's literally impossible. So and the solution is not that hard. It's just having different districts, different places, and these communities self-governance. So I think this is a important step to more quiz countries and communities.
I absolutely agree with you, and it was actually quite interesting that I talk with a lot of people, and at the end of the day, I think we are getting to a collective like unified vision of what's going on, because you mentioned about the blue and red, and perhaps like some generations they might not see, but I think for millennials, like we all got to a stage that we understand that this game, like left and right, like red and blue, is not leading anyone anywhere because we're not solving issues. We're just like polarizing and not bringing solutions. In that sense, I believe protocols, networks, and blockchain again are big tools for communities to start arranging themselves. And even within a single network, I think it's important to touch point on the technological part, because some people might not understand it. When we talk about protocol, network, blockchain, okay, is a technology that is based on cryptography. But then what is a network? What is a protocol? And within a network, you might have different protocols. So you might have different tribes within the same network, like Ethereum. But if you compare Ethereum and Bitcoin, definitely there is a huge difference in terms of culture. Like Bitcoin, they're more like libertarian. Ethereum, they might be, I don't know, more like socialist, social democrats, or I don't know, meta capitalists. But if you want to touch point in those differences, it would be amazing.
Yeah, that's I think a lot about this, because I think there's something very deep in human species that oscillates between left and right always. Like in left is collective and right is individual, and these two extremes, let's say, they are important. We need to oscillate between that. So I think Bitcoin, for example, they have an important role in pointing out the flaws of the system, the financial system, the monetary system, the centralization. They have this very strong libertarian position of self-sovereignty and live and let live and so on. And that's great, but this is not enough. We are a social species. We need to learn how to coordinate collectively. So, for example, if you over-index in exit, for example, that's okay. If you are living in a city that doesn't have a governance that you like, for example, you can exit and go to another one. But you can exit ocean pollution, for example, or air pollution, because this is systemic risks, these global systemic risks, and climate change and AI risk, and so all these systemic risks that are emerging. So we need, in the end of the day, we need to learn how to coordinate collectively, even in small communities or globally. We need to develop technology and process to agree. So protocols have a great deal on that, because it's not political. So when we talk about protocols, it's just like a set of rules that everyone agree, and it's coded. It's open source. You can change after starting using, because they have network effects and so on. So when you agree that to send an email from point E to point B, and everyone agree, it's very difficult to change that. Bitcoin is the same. Even China, United States, Europe, South America, institutions, political institutions, private companies, individuals, everyone agree on upon the balance sheet of the decentralized network of Bitcoin. That's pretty big deal, right? Because everyone that has different beliefs, political systems, economic rules, but that specific rule of how much Bitcoin I have, you have, other companies have, other institutes have, everyone's agree upon. So that's very big deal, and we need to replicate this concept of collective decision making or collective shared beliefs, let's say, in other areas. So we can avoid wars, we can avoid violence, because to keep Bitcoin the same way, the network don't rely on violence. It's just cryptography, for example. So this is a great technology to have a more cohesive and pacific global society.
Well, this is such an interesting topic, and look, the podcast is flying, and we are probably reaching to the end of the episode. So there's a lot of things that I want to touch upon, but I'll probably shift the conversation towards the commentary that you're launching with Peerbase, and of course in a partnership with Tools for the Commons and Ipe City. So if you want to talk about the network societies of commentary, and as know for a fact, Balaji is also taking part on that documentary. So if you can brief the audience about what would they be watching and what they will be introduced in this documentary, it'll be awesome.
Yeah, definitely. The documentary is the Network Society. It's a documentary series that starts when I traveled to Próspera. That is a charter city in Honduras. It's a startup city, and I went to a pop-up city there. It's a Vitalia. It's a 2-month long event and that gathered 500 people to discuss about biotech and governance systems and so on. So these events attract a lot of smart and leaders in the ecosystems, including Balaji, Albeide Gray, Magate, Patrick Friedman, Jordan, and a lot of other smart people. So when I went there, I decided to create this documentary because it's just a huge opportunity to have so many smart people there. And there's a lack of good narratives around crypto and around these new, these emergent innovations. So yeah, we created this first episode. We premiered yesterday, actually, here in Florianopolis, in a private, in-person setting. And next week we released public on YouTube, on X. And I think it's the response, the feedback until now it's great. People are liking a lot. And my goal with this documentary is to share a more optimistic story about this technology and reach the young ambitious people that may be not too optimistic about the future, because the narrative is so doomed. And I think we need more optimistic stories and bring these ambitious young people to help to build, to create these new technologies.
Yeah, some may say that we live in a world, especially in the last, let's say, 4 years, wrapped in narratives. So I think the question is, which narrative will win? I think I'm pretty sure the narrative that will stay and endure times is the more optimistic one, let's say, the one that brings people together and get them to accomplish and build stuff towards a common goal. In that sense, protocols and blockchains have been amazing, like Bitcoin. Aside from all the speculation, we know when money gets in, things get very financialized, and also it's normal that we don't build too much, and rather than that, just focus on the profit. But that's changing, especially with the the people that I'm talking with, even outside the industry or blockchain industry, they are starting to understand that blockchain, Bitcoin is not Bitcoin. Bitcoin is a native currency of a network society. And more than that, is a network state. Because I was thinking when you were talking about this, maybe the blockchains are network states, and the protocols within it with specific rules, those are network societies. So, well, there's a lot of things to explore in terms of reflecting, but I think we only have 10 minutes left. So just try to make good use of it. So when we think about network societies, where do you see them forming? Because Balaji touched point on the specific aspects of them forming online, digital first, physical less, land less. Yeah. So how do you see people gathering online, and how do you build culture on the digital era?
Yeah, definitely. I think the main insight of Balaji's book is uh, understanding the power of the digital, that we can, in the last 15 or 20 years, uh, most of our assets, let's say, work, friends, social graph, education, finance, culture, all these very important things that previously was very tied to the territory, to physical place and your nation state. Now they unbundle it to digital services, to the cloud. So I think this creates a very different dynamic, very different society. So suddenly now your main community, for example, your main tribe is not that one that is close to you. It's not your neighbor anymore. It's someone in the other side of the planet. For example, it's the Bitcoin community. Is the I don't know, some community in TikTok or some CrossFit community and so on. So I think if you understand this, we can start to think in how to nurture this community to create deeper deep culture. So Ballers talk a lot about collective action. It's not enough to connect with people. In this first era of the internet, we connect a lot with people. We reduce the distance of this community, but we are not very good in collective action. So if you go to Twitter, we discuss, we fight, we learn. There's a lot of, but there's no good social platforms to collectively reach a predetermined goal. For example, to build projects. Maybe open source project is the closest one, but it's still lacking some dimensions. So I think Web3, maybe with tokens, with NFTs, with rituals, we can create more cohesive communities to really have the capacity to collective action and to cultivate in the Ipe City community. We develop the project Pulse that are uh, weekly rituals that we do to execute some task, to execute some activity collectively. So this creates a collective ritual, a collective habit to share some beliefs, some content, and this bring people together. So this create memes, this enforce this community. So I think we need to learn to use these new digital primitives to uh, to create these relationships.
Amazing take on that. Well, now we're actually reaching the like last 10 minutes. So glad that we have explored a lot of different topics. I'll probably just use this last 10 minutes to get something very interesting that I kept in my mind is the fact that when people like if you're not into the industry, if you haven't been to crypto for far too long, you might not have like a clear understanding of what happened, like what degree of maturing are we. So okay, you have crypto, you have like a cryptos like Bitcoin, Ethereum, which are just again native currencies of their own blockchains. But most people they must wonder, okay, so what does that coin does? We cannot do anything with that coin. We cannot build anything. But they might not realize that when we're talking about blockchain or networks, we are not only attracting capital, we are also attracting users. So when we think about
Hmm.
societies, we have the ones that consume, the ones that funded, and also the builders. So we are also at that stage now that we see more and more in blockchain networks that we are attracting a lot of developers. So if you want to talk about this, the building units of a blockchain, because most people they might think is just like financial speculation and they don't understand there's a lot of development going on with users, developers, and like capital is flowing in. We cannot deny that.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good question because the financial aspect of crypto it's louder. So most people think that it's not a platform; it's just a new asset that somehow you buy and wait to value. But the the crypto space, the blockchain space, is such a huge ecosystem to build new solutions, to think in in new in new platforms, in new solutions. Give a very concrete example. So we are talking about I don't know communities. So we need new ways to create reward systems in our community. So before blockchains, the most reliable way to kind of create a reward system in society is very low dimension. Let's say it's money. So, but this is not very does not get many of the other dimensions of social interactions. For example, if you are part of local community and you make a voluntary service, for example, you you don't attach that to your identity, for example, in a very reliable way. So there's a lot of ways to use crypto in social settings. And Balaj also talk about parallel institutions, né? So health, science, governance, and education, all these pillars we will use the blockchain and decentralized infrastructure as well. So all these pillars are opportunities to think and to build businesses or projects or open source projects and so on. So there's a lot of space to create.
Wow, Jean, this was an amazing episode. We will definitely have more opportunities to talk because, well, I was trying my best to keep it focused. We could talk a lot about a lot of different stuff, but the time was short. So we are reaching the very end of the episode. We only have 5 minutes left, but I'd like for you to pitch your own projects, things you're doing at the moment. You already mentioned about the documentary that we are co-launching. But again, brief like the audience about your social medias where you're easier to find so they can interact with you and cooperate as well.
Sure. We are building Ipe City, that is a community to build projects in network society to accelerate this transition to a network society. So everyone is very welcome to participate in ip.city and our website. And we are building multiple projects. The documentary, it's a big one. It's a documentary series, so we are producing now the second episode about Vitalia. We have a third episode in network school with Balaji and several others, and we are in April 2025. We will launch a pop-up city here in Brazil, Florianopolis. So this we're just getting started to plan this, and we are needing a lot of people that are aligned to help us and create and amplify this movement in Brazil to build projects around crypto, around governance, really focus in governance, in decentralized coordination tools and all that we discuss now. So if you want to help to build the cities of the future, the governments of the future, I think Ipe City is your place to learn more, to engage with ambitious and smart people, and participate hands-on on this future.
Amazing. Well, guys, John is also present on LinkedIn. He's quite active there. So if you want to connect with him, I'll leave the profile link on the description. Me personally will be also participating a lot, working, collaborating with Ipe City. So you can find me there. And that's pretty much it for today's episode. We thank you for your audience and we'll see you on next week. See ya.